Hello and welcome to My Own Worst Enemy. I am going to be taking a look today at these Cube4Me trays. These are brand spanking new. I was watching, I think it was the counter clipping show with Ardwolf, and he had mentioned that Cube4Me had these brand new flat counter storage trays. And I thought, you know what, I need to take a look at these because that seems like something that would be kind of interesting and useful. And I really think this would really work for magazine games and games that have low density counters, basically. So if you had a game that didn't have a whole lot of counters, one of these might be, well, two, because you're going to need one for the lid. We'll talk about that in a bit. But one of these would be great for that. So let's go ahead now and take a look at exactly what we're getting here. And before I go any further, full disclaimer, I did not have, I bought these myself. The Cube4Me did not send me these to review. So I don't even think they know I exist like everybody else in the world. So these I bought myself. So this is my honest opinion, and I'm not on the hook to give a positive review. I got they come in two sizes. So this is for the 1/2 inch counters, and this is for the 5/8 inch counters. And so in these I actually pulled out my old Starfleet Battles box, which I haven't opened in quite some time. It was in reach. I just grabbed something that I knew had 1/2 inch counters. And being that this is from Starfleet Battles, and I played this back, I actually acquired this back in '79. And I was looking at these counters, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that these are counters from the Interstellar Concordium, which I know is in Federation and Empire, but I don't really remember these being in Starfleet Battles. It's been so long. I need to go back and dig through all of my old Starfleet Battles stuff. Maybe that should be a video at some point. Let me know. But I've got my original Starfleet Battles stuff, and it'd be kind of cool to dig through that and see what I've got in there. I've even got like handwritten notes and all kinds of crazy things in there. But I had no idea that the ISC was in Starfleet Battles. And then for the others, these 5/8, I pulled out, this is across 5 Aprils. I knew it had 5/8 inch counters. So call back to the classic games, I guess, in this as a bonus in this first look at. So as you can see here, let's look at the 1/2 inch counter tray first. And like I said, this is a flat pack. The counters lay in flat just like this. And I was able to get, I think it's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So I got 10 in here that lays flat. And they tell you this on the Cube4Me website. And I printed out what they say here, that the storage capacity for the 1/2 inch counter, 13 millimeter, they call it, fits 240 counters. So that makes sense, right? We've got 10 across, and we've got 24 of these rows. So you could get 240 counters in here. Hold that thought. The 5/8, there are 20 of these rows, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the counters across. 8 counters across. So for the 5/8, you can get 160 counters in one of these. So the way this works is you put your counters in, just like you see them here. And then I've got a stack of these things. I'm just going to grab another one, and we'll grab another one of the 5/8 inch counter trays as well. So the way it works is you put your counters in, and then you put another one on top. The lid is, in fact, another counter holder, if you will, but it's not, you don't put counters in it. So you would do this, and you would put your counters in there, and they would stay. You can shake it, they'd be in the box, and these fit on pretty tight. They shouldn't come off in the box under normal circumstances. Now, as I'm shaking this, I see that they are, in fact, sliding over. That's probably because I don't really have this compressed. I was kind of doing this, and they're sliding around. But I also ordered a set of these. Now, this is something else they offered, and it's basically you order a lid, and you'll get some of these bands with it. So the theory being that you would put your counters in, fill it up, and then put one of these bands around the entire tray. You can do that. Now, I personally do not like the thought of this at all. Now, it does go on there good, and I don't know if you'd want to put a band on each end. There are these little slots here, hard to see on the camera there. Let's see if I can do a reflection. But you can see there's slots at each end of this. So maybe you would put a band here and a band here, and that would really keep this firm and prevent these counters from slipping under each other like it's going on here. I don't like the idea of this because this is rubber, and I've looked in some old game boxes that had rubber bands holding things together. And over time, unless this is something modern that I'm not aware of, over time, rubber bands just, they decay, they stick to the plastic, they disintegrate, they fall apart, and they're kind of useless. You could use maybe a hair tie or something different. I don't know how well that would fit. And I have put hair ties around GMT counter trays, but they're really tight. They're too tight, and they tend to pull the tray together. So this would work for holding your counter tray lid on really, really good. And in fact, there's a another slot there in the middle. So it looks like it was designed for these bands to go along the outer ends of this thing. So these would definitely work. And if you were not too concerned about decay over time or anything like that, then this would be the way to go. Maybe if you just use these for transporting or something, that might work. So same thing for the 5/8. It's got the same location for those bands to go on there. So let's go back to the 1/2-inch tray here for a second. I'll just put the lid off to the side, and I'm going to put these back, sort these back out. And like I said, they slid under each other. I think because, like I said, I was not really securing the lid properly. So I don't think if you had this in a box nicely secured, I don't think these counters would slide under each other like that. So as I mentioned, for both of these, I'm going to take this lid off again. So for both of these, as the website states, it is, what did they say? 240 counters for 1/2-inch, 160 counters for the 5/8. Now, I think that they may be selling themselves a little short there, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to grab some more of these ISC counters. What I discovered in fiddling with these things is that actually you can get another row of counters on top of the one that's already in there. You can go right over these counters, and I'll just do this as quick as I can. You can go over the existing row of counters with another row of 1/2-inch counters, or 5/8 if you're using the other tray, and fill it up again. So now I've got 2 rows of counters in 1 row of the counter tray, and the lid still fits. Now it's not, it's probably hard to see this on camera, but I mean, it fits almost perfectly still. There's not really any raising going on underneath this counter lid. So you can get another row of counters on top of the existing row. The only thing is, of course, it may defeat the purpose of actually having these counters visible like this. But remember, you can always flip this over. It's clear on the other side. And if I had reversed these counters, you'd be able to see this side too. So honestly, I think they're selling themselves a little short. You could actually get 480 counters in one of these by doubling up like that. And again, they're sliding because these lids do not stay on good if you're handling them like I am right now, kind of carelessly. The counters will slide around. You're going to have to secure these with some kind of band or something to prevent that. And that's kind of unfortunate. And I don't know if there was a better option to secure the lid better. That's one of the cons of this. The lids aren't that secure, and that's why they offer those bands. But anyway, you can get 480 counters in one of these trays. Now, they probably don't say that because they may have done some testing where they've determined that it isn't ideal to have double rows for some reason, but I don't think so. I think if I were going to do this and I had counters you didn't have enough space to hold all the counters, and maybe you just had a few more counters, I think I would just stick them in or start doubling up like that. And like I said, you can just simply flip the counters over and then put counters on top. And that way you can see them. So you can see them from either side. And I'm going to mess this up, I'm sure, because it's, like I said, I don't really have it secure. But you can flip it over and see what's each row is. So it's not a huge deal, as long as this lid stays secure. And that, of course, is the main thing. And I think there probably are ways of doing that. I kind of wish they had done something where maybe the lids would snap in place. I don't know if it's even possible to have something like that happen. But that would have been nice if somehow these trays could stay firmly secure and you didn't need the bands, but it is what it is. And so with the 5/8 counters, instead of 160, you'd be able to hold 320. And it's the same thing. You could just flip over I can't flip this one because the lid's not on it, but you could flip this over and see what the other row is, face up, face down. So these trays, I think, would be great for if you had a game that the counters you could set up by scenario. And a lot of games are like that, where something like, what's a good example? Maybe Pacific War, or I don't know if that's a good example or not, but you have a game where you play by scenario setup and the counters are all split out by scenario. This would be great because you could see that you could just grab a tray, there's your scenario, and you could play it. Or even I'm thinking something like maybe even Space Empires 4, where you put all of the red players' counters in one of these, and then you put the green and the blue and the yellow each get their own tray. You just hand somebody a counter tray, and there you go. So let me get these out of the way. Well, actually, let me show you one more thing. This is also kind of cool. Let me get this lid off again. So the other cool thing about this is if you have games that have 1/2-inch counters and 5/8-inch counters. So you do have games out there that mix counter sizes. And the cool thing about this tray system is you can put these trays on top of each other. These stacks, so now I've got a stack of 1/2-inch counters on top of 5/8-inch counters. And I can't really, let me see if I can grab another lid. So here's another 3/8-inch counter on top of the 1/2-inch counter. So you can mix these up and you can have different counter sizes in the tray. So that's really, really cool and a really great idea to be able to do that so that you can mix your counters. There are games, like I said, that have mixed counters in the game. And then, of course, the other advantage with these is stacking. So you can get, let's see, I'm going to grab I've got an Aegis counter tray here, and I got a GMT counter tray. I think that's a GMT counter tray. And these are about the same thickness, I believe. So yeah, that's roughly the same thickness. So let's just use the Aegis one here, and let's see how many of these we can stack. And again, you'd have to have one of these to be the lid. So you'd have to leave one space left over to actually have a lid. I'm just going to smash these together until we see what we get up to here. See how many trays we could possibly fit. That's about even right there. And remember, so this final tray I put on would have to be the lid if you were going to use this. So let's take that back off. That one will not count. It would be the lid. How many trays did I actually get in here? So 1, 2, looks like 4. Yeah, I'm going to say that's 4 trays. You get 4 of these counter trays, or what would be one GMT or Aegis type counter tray. So 4 of these plus the lid to hold it all together so they don't spill out. So you'd have to do the calculations. It'd be at 1/2 inch, it's 480 times 4. That's a lot of counters. And then 320 if you max them out for the 5/8 times 4. Again, that's a lot of counters. So that's kind of cool. So let's rip these apart again. All right, now we're back down to our single layers of 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch counters. So now let's talk about some possible cons here that I have noticed in playing with these counter trays. There is a problem with static. And so if you put a lid on top of a tray and you go to pull it apart, I have had the counters stick to the bottom of the lid or the counter tray on top of it. So there is a problem with static. Now, I think Cube4Me is aware of this, because one of the options you have when you order these trays, if you look under the where you order it, the last thing you can order is an anti-static brush. And I don't know how that would work, and I don't know how well that would work. Maybe it's something I should try, but it seems that they are aware there is a static issue, and that's pretty common with counter trays anyway. They're plastic, right? You're going to get static electricity. So that's a potential problem with the tray, is when you take it off, you may have some counters stick. Although it wasn't really a huge deal that I noticed when I was playing with these. And then now another potential problem, and this one isn't quite as bad, because the idea of this tray is you look at your counters and you can see without opening them up and digging around exactly what is in there. But if you're a person who loves to label your counters, your counter trays, you're going to have to get a lid. And then I guess you could put the label inside the bottom of this tray. And as long as you're okay with using another tray as a lid, and that's what they tell you to do, you could put labels in here to kind of tell you what is underneath there if you didn't just want to look at the counters. Now, I guess you could also flip the tray and just put the label on the back so that you could flip it, and you could put your labels there. So labeling might be a little bit tricky with these, but again, because you're able to just look at the counters, do you really need labels? Maybe not, unless you want to put a scenario in each quadrant or something. Then you might want to put a label on it. So labeling might be a concern with these. Now, another problem that I discovered, and this one really bugged me, but this may not be a problem. So I'm going to grab let me grab a box here. So this is, what is this? This is Washington's War, GMT, the bottom. So this is where these trays would fit. As you can see, that fits in there really nice. So we got our counter tray in Washington's War. So this is a standard size GMT box, a newer game, and that works great. However, and this really bothers me, but like I said, hold on for a second, it may not be a problem. So this is across 5 Aprils, and I think this is the, I think I got the lid. So hold on a second, and let me grab the bottom part of this, because as we all know, the lid is a little bit smaller than the, or a little larger, I think, than the bottom part. So this is the bottom part of across 5 Aprils. And this is where the problem is. This will not fit in this box. This tray is too big, too large. That's a problem. And actually, you reach behind me here. This is Global War, a low counter density game. And I'm just going to try to put it right in top here. Will not fit. Will not fit. So that's a bummer, because as you can see, this isn't, oops, I just knocked it. And this is why I need to put one of these trays in here, because all these counters just, I don't know why they're out of the Ziploc bag. I must have been in the middle of a playthrough. So this is a White Dog Games box and Blue Panther box. Does not fit. But like I said, this may not be a problem, because I went back to the Cube4Me site and noticed that they're now, and I had this printed out. Let's see if I can fold this in half and get it on camera so you can see it here. This is actually the printout from where you order these things. And they have this thing called this new tray size. And if you look at their website, they've misprinted here. It's actually, the new tray size is 291 millimeters by 216. So the 216 has not changed, but they have made the 293 has gone down to 291. So it's gone from 11.5 inches to 11.46 inches, which is a little bit smaller. So where did my across 5 Aprils box go? Well, you know, for the across 5 Aprils, I don't think this is going to fit even then. So that the width that they've cut down on was the height of this thing. So the length, and actually that may fit, but it's still too wide. So it would not fit width-wise in here. Yeah, so neither tray is going to fit. And if you have an older game, and I've got a ton of older games, if you watch the channel, you know that, they're not going to fit in the older game boxes. So that's a very, very big con to this system. And I'm going to reach behind me again and grab, where did it go? So this is Global War again. Let me empty it out so we can just get the bottom. Unfortunately, the audio cut out right here. I'm sure it was user error or something I did. So anyway, what I was saying is that in these Blue Panther type boxes, it may fit the length. The length of this thing may be short enough with the new measurement that it might fit. The width is certainly okay. I'm not sure about the length. So it is possible that with this new size they've come up with it may fit. So that's something to be aware of, though. Overall, I like these new counter trays a lot. I think it's neat to see something new, and I'm glad that Cube4Me is actually trying new things like this. That's very encouraging. I mean, you know, when's the last time we saw innovation with a counter tray, right? This is really a great idea, and I certainly see use for this. Like I said, you have a game that's low counter density, or you have specific scenarios you want to set up. And even if you're just playing a game, and you could use one of these to throw counters in as they come on into the game, like, you know, these units arrive turn whatever, put them in the tray by turn arrival. That would be a cool thing, to put labels on the left side and the counters on the right side. If you put a lot of thought into this, these trays have a lot of functionality, I think. So yeah, I do like these. If you've never ordered anything from Cube4Me, don't be afraid to. I realize they're in Poland and you've got to ship these things across the sea. So the cost of one of these trays is around $16 US. Your shipping cost is going to be a little bit less than that. So I paid, I think it was 14 or 15 US dollars to have all this shipped from Poland. That's a bargain. I mean, if you're shipping from Poland to the United States, that is not bad at all. So don't be afraid of ordering these things just because they are in Poland. So that's it. I just wanted to show you this new counter tray. Kudos to Cube4Me for actually trying new things. This is great. I look forward to seeing what they come up with next. This is good. So if you wanted to try these, I hope this helped you out to make that decision. I don't know if they will continue to have these in stock, if these are just a test, or maybe these are now permanent. Who knows? But if you want to order them, you better get them now because they could disappear. That's it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. And as always, I look forward to seeing you back here next time.